Hi, folks. I'm Chuck Owen, and I'm absolutely delighted that Gail asked me to participate in this forum. And I'm going to spend some time talking mostly about an organization that means a whole lot to me, and one that I believe is having a pretty profound impact in the jazz community. The organization's name is ISJAC. It's the International Society for Jazz Arrangers and Composers. I was involved in the founding of this organization, which is now just about 6 years old, and I currently serve as its president too. I'm guessing probably a lot of you are familiar with ISJAC, but many of you may not be. And even if you are, you may not be all that familiar with some of the specific programming and the resources we're trying to provide. And I guess I'm pretty confident, even if you're not a jazz composer, you're going to be interested in learning more about what we do and possibly ways in which you actually might want to get involved or collaborate with us. But first, I have some pretty exciting news. It's on another front. My Jazz Surge, it's a big band I've led for 25 years, 19-piece jazz orchestra. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary, as I mentioned, and we just released our 7th CD last week, entitled Within Us. It's on Summit Records, Summit Mama, actually. And in celebration of that, we're appearing this Sunday, 5 p.m. at Birdland in New York. So for those of you in the vicinity, I would certainly like to invite you to come on out and check this out. We don't actually play in New York all that much because the band is based in large part, actually, we're from all over, but we started being based in Florida, and over the years we've got people now in New York, in Nashville, a couple actually from out in Utah, North Carolina. So the band's kind of from all over, but as a result, we just don't get into New York to play very frequently. In fact, this is the first time I think in 10 years. So we're really excited to be back. We've got some very special surprise guests that will be sitting in that have appeared on some of our previous albums. And it's just going to be a wonderful evening. The musicians that I've got in band are just absolutely stellar. Some of you, if you're in the New York area, you'll know. And the last 3 albums we've done have all been really well received. We've actually been fortunate to garner Grammy nominations for all 3 of the last ones we've done. In fact, the last album alone got 4 Grammy nominations, including for Best Jazz, Large Jazz Ensemble, and for Best Improvised Solo for our stunning violinist, Sarah Caswell. If you haven't heard Sarah play before, you really want to come out and see her. It's pretty unusual to have a violin as a regular chair in the big band, but it's actually been a chair in my band for, well, over 12 years, I think. We're also a little unusual in that we have 2 guitars in the band. So it has a little bit of a kind of Americana-ish vibe to it, in addition to being kind of rooted in the tradition. I'm the Surge's conductor. I'm the producer, the booking agent, the bottle washer. I'm pretty much everything. But primarily, I'm a composer and an arranger, and I've written or arranged virtually everything we've done with the band. There was one album project that was not all mine, but certainly on this album I have. And just a really brief background, I'm not going to go through my whole history here, but in addition to the Jazz Surge, which has been my primary writing vehicle for this 25 years, I started out writing for the Tonight Show band out in LA just a little bit, doing some work for pops orchestras, symphony pops orchestras, and kind of graduated into writing for a bunch of the European jazz orchestras. In fact, I've got an album with the great WDR big band coming out in the spring, I believe. We don't have a date for it specifically yet, but that's what I've been led to believe. So I'm really excited about that one. And I've written for a bunch of U.S. military jazz ensembles and university bands and that sort of thing too. So anyways, this album that we just came out with, entitled Within Us, it's a special album for a number of reasons. Not only the 25th anniversary of the band, but it was the first time that we were able to record since COVID. We actually recorded this album in May, and honestly, when we went into the studio, I don't think anybody in the band had been in the studio recording with a big band since COVID. So it was one of the most joyous and heartwarming gatherings that I've been a part of. It was just, it was stunning how much people not only missed seeing each other, because this band had become pretty much almost like a family, but how much they missed gathering and playing music together. I understand that this program here is about alternative venues, but one of the things we don't want to lose sight of is those non-alternative venues, the ones that, you know, that we're kind of grounded in, making music together and in live formats. So it's another reason I'm also really excited about the Birdland date, is that this will be the first time we've performed any of this music live and together as well. I do have a short little video here I want to play that I think that captures the mood of this recording really well and gives you a sense of it. I'll ask my producer if she'll play this thing now.
But I won't hug. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Correct.
Come on, we can't dodge this any longer.
Ready? Stand by. Rolling.
Yeah, I like that, Sarah. Thank you. I like that. So, Danny, are you kind of more comfortable with what to play there?
Yeah, I mean, I like that if you like it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
4, 5, 6.
Chuck's music has evolved to where it doesn't sound like anybody else. It's sort of chamber music, sort of classical, but really swinging. Just has a different texture than most big bands would have.
I know at 13 I played a clam there, but
It's like my dog.
Another one.
Okay.
Just gotta keep my brain straight. Come back to it later, it'll be done.
Part of being a great band leader and artist is being able to find the right people to put together. And Chuck is just a master.
We love this music so much, and we love each other so much, and we love Chuck. The fact that he's put his faith in us and what we're able to do is just such, it's a very humbling experience. So it's a thrill when we are all able to collect our energy together and get that take that we know makes him laugh and makes him happy.
That was fun. Perfect. So I think you hopefully took away the feeling that came out of that great recording session. The album project started being oriented around our 25th anniversary when I started planning this, and it had the title of Milestones in my mind because we were thinking about the 25 years we'd been together, all those many milestones along the ways. It got so much that word was embedded in my mind that when I wrote a grant for this project, I found myself using milestones all the time. I thought, you know what, I just need to arrange the classic Miles Davis piece, Milestones, for this. So I committed to doing that before really having a clue what I wanted to do musically. And then lo and behold, I found out it mashed up really well with the very first tune I ever wrote for the Jazz Surge. So it was this perfect kind of combination of forward-looking and backward-looking at the same time. But what this album ended up really mostly being about was community. And I realized that before we even got together. In fact, the very last piece I wrote is the title cut of the piece, Within Us. It's actually taken from an Albert Camus poem, which some of you may be a little familiar with, because I think it's had a little traction over the years. Albert Camus is a, kind of an existentialist, and I don't know that he had quite the take on I took on it. My take on it was really positive, and I changed it. His was all about himself. In the midst of hate, I did this and I did that, and I changed it to make it more of a community thing, and that was, to me, the spirit of this album. And I'll go ahead and read you the poem, because I think it cuts through all of this. In the midst of hate, we found there was within us an invincible love. In the midst of tears, we found there was within us an invincible smile. In the midst of chaos, we found there was within us an invincible calm. And we realized through it all that in the midst of winter, there was within us an invincible summer. And coming out of COVID, with that in my mind, it was just like, wow, this is kind of what we need at this moment. And this is the spirit I wanted this album to have. And I think we ended up doing a pretty good job. So I do hope that some of you will check it out when you have a minute. And those of you in New York, again, I would really love to see you drop by Birdland on Sunday. But for now, I think I'm going to move on and talk really kind of what I was very excited to talk to you about was this organization, ISJAC, the International Society for Jazz Arrangers and Composers. As I mentioned, we launched it about 6 years ago, but actually it's an outgrowth of a research center I had established at the University of South Florida. The other hat I've worn for actually many years, but it's now off my head, I was an educator at the University of South Florida for 40 years before retiring just this August. And it allowed me to start this research center about jazz composition, and it was kind of, we had a lot of different facets of it, but one of the things we did was establish this Jazz Composers Symposium. When the funding for that, the state funding for that, kind of went away in a kind of response to the recession of 2008 or whatever I don't think we actually closed our doors for another couple of years, but basically the funding kind of went away, and we weren't able to do much more after that. But all of the positive energy that we'd kind of built up during that time kind of remained with a number of us. And so a few years later, we got together and said, what's another way we could do this? And how are we really needed? And that kind of made us realize all of a sudden that although many other organizations have service organizations that work with them. Saxophonists have the American Saxophone Alliance. Trumpeters have the International Trumpet Guild. There's all sorts of organizations for classical jazz composers. There's, Chamber of Music America. All of these organizations, but none of them were directly responsive to jazz composers. Some of them incorporate the jazz composers in their funding and in their kind of thoughts and services, but none of them are really focused on what the needs of the jazz composers are. So that became our mission. And briefly, our mission statement is to unite and serve the international community of jazz arrangers and composers, to advance the understanding and appreciation of jazz composition, and to stimulate the creation, performance, and dissemination of new works and research in jazz composition. We've had a lot of success. We started with an unusual model, and as a result, we've grown to 1,800 members from over 45 countries. So there's clearly an interest in kind of what we're doing. We have a wonderful board of directors. I'm absolutely delighted that Gail Boyd is one of those now. But we're still largely a volunteer-run organization. We've got a group called the Executive Committee that handles most of it, and most of the production and all of that. So here, I want to tell you a little bit of what we do, so that you know maybe how you might want to get involved, or at least to be able to refer other people to us. We support jazz composers in a few ways. We have website resources. We do a monthly artist blog, and after 5 years, we have over 60 composers, I think, that have contributed to this. Can't remember exactly how many blogs, but it's an incredibly diverse array of composers, all sorts of interests. One of the things we established early on, when we were dealing with the whole notion of jazz composition, is kind of how big should our umbrella be? I mean, are we talking about kind of classic jazz composition? Are we talking about big band? Are we talking about small group or orchestra? And we basically decided we wanted our umbrella to be as inclusive and as large as possible. So you'll see that in those artist blogs. And by the way, you can log on to www.isjack.org, and just you'll see the section for artist blogs, and they're all there. We've just started something now where our individual members are going to be able to build out their own profiles. One of the things we've found over the years is that what our members are most interested in, they're interested in learning, they're interested in certainly finding funding for their own projects, but they are really interested in sharing what they're doing. So this is going to give them an opportunity to tell a little bit about themselves, share some of the projects they're working on, both scores as well as videos and recordings. And hopefully there will be some collaborations that come out of that, or opportunities. We've inaugurated a program that's also fairly new called IsJack Shorts, which allows our members also to create very short videos, kind of just showing us and showing the community what they're doing. We have information on opportunities about grants, artist residencies, that sort of thing. We have established a partnership with a group called the Arrangers Podcast that they'd been actually going for a little bit, and so now we're publishing some of their things, and they're actually producing some actually podcasts directly about our Hall of Fame members. They did a couple this. I guess about a year ago, they did one on Chick Corea. They interviewed him and produced that podcast probably just 3 or 4 months before he passed away. And then we do have archive sessions from some of our symposias and other things we've put on, other productions there. So we are working very diligently, but we've got a long way to go to build this website into a really great resource for composers. And we're constantly chatting with them to find out what else they need and how can we continue to help. So that's one aspect. Another thing we do, we are offering some financial support through prizes, and it's actually maybe more recognition than financial support, but it's both. We started, our first prize was the Owen Prize, which is for very young composers, emerging composers. We then started a prize just about a year and a half ago, well, right after last summer, called the Prize for Emerging Black Composers, which is also for young guys, although in this case, I think the Owen Prize is up to 26, but for the Prize for Emerging Black Composers, we've taken a little bit broader view, and so I think it's up to 32 or 35 that they can be while applying for that. We initiated, in response to COVID, we initiated a bunch of emergency commissioning grants. I think 16 of them, maybe. They weren't huge grants, but boy, we knew how much they were appreciated by especially our freelance composers who just had no income coming in at all. We do a thing called Sonic Prizes. Now, these are not cash. These are kind of honorary, but these are they apply for and applying to present at our symposium, and they're selected by a number of committees, and their music is actually performed at the symposium by a professional jazz orchestra. It's a very meaningful concert. And then we have our Hall of Fame. Our largest honor is our Hall of Fame, and we've now done 3 classes of Hall of Fame recipients. We'll have our 4th coming up this spring. We have a bunch of different ways of recognizing composers that are doing really great works, and we just hope to continue to expand that as well. Our biggest event is the Jazz Composers Symposium, and it's really kind of our signature event. It's what kind of, if you ask the majority of people who are our members, this is what they would focus on and tell you about, because if they've come to it, they've all talked about how meaningful this event is, how it's been one of the best experiences they've ever had. And it's not because we have great guest artists, and we do. We've had some wonderful ones. Our prior guest composers have included Darcy James Argue, Billy Childs, Maria Schneider, John Hollenbeck, Rufus Reed, Ron Miles, Bill Frisell, Vince Mendoza, Christine Jensen, Chris Potter. It's a pretty impressive list. And actually our upcoming symposium, we've firmed up those guest artists, and it's going to include Miguel Zidon with his quartet, Terry Lynn Carrington with social science, Jim McNeely, Miho Hizama, and John Clayton are all going to be serving as the guest artists for that. But as I said, that's not as much as everybody comes kind of to see those folks and everything. What we found they take away with them is this sense of community that we're so eager to build, because that sense of community is not going to continue to inspire people, but it's going to give them folks that they can rely on. They know, they're going to know when they run into problems, when they have answers to questions, who they can reach out to for whatever. In addition to those featured artists, at the symposium, we curate into some industry sessions, which have included in the past presentations from Chamber Music America, from ASCAP, Artist Share, Dorico. We've had clinics on jazz and film from people working in that medium, on vocal jazz scoring. We do some things where we take apart some of the pieces from our folks in the Hall of Fame. So we'll have a live orchestra, they'll play segments, and then we'll kind of analyze it and ask for feedback and all that sort of thing. There's lots of different presentations at the symposium. But the biggest thing, without a doubt, is our ability to feature the music of our symposium members. So we actually are able to feature about 65 to 70 different pieces during this 3 days at the symposium in a variety of different formats. So it's always kind of moving forward and doesn't bog down. So I would really strongly encourage, if you're interested at all in jazz composition, on whether you're a practicing jazz composer or someone who just really loves that, I would really encourage you to try and come at some point in time to one of these jazz composers symposiums. Our next one is this upcoming May of 2022 in Austin, Texas. We do these in collaboration with university programs typically. So it's at the University of Texas, Austin. They're our host entity, and the dates are, I should have put those down, I think that's May 12 through 14. It's that week for sure. It's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So please consider joining us down there. I think if we can do this, if we can pull this off, there's another short little video taken from the last symposium we did that'll give you a sense, I think, of the community.
When will you see John Clayton, Darcy James Argue, Vince Mendoza casually walk around, mingle with us, and then pass the wisdom that they accumulated by the time like they experienced? I think that's so great.
I'm excited to be here because it's a real chance to be with my community of composers in the world that I get to hear or see from afar and see their work, and then we all land in one place and we get to just geek out on everything composition, between workshops, these beautiful presentations by composers where they get feedback from their mentors that they never thought they'd be in a room with. It's all just so amazing. And then to top it off, great evening concerts.
I'm from London in England, and 2 years ago I saw an advert in Jazz Times which was advertising for this thing called ISJAC, which I knew nothing about. It was 4,000 miles away in Tampa, Florida, at the University of South Florida. And I took a punt and booked a ticket and a hotel, and it was life-changing.
I remember when I was in Count Basie band, they were my ISJAC. They were the guys that ended up being the people that guided me and helped me and I could lean on. They're the ones actually that influenced me to, oh, you don't like what you did? Well, don't worry about editing that one. If you write another one. And the stuff you didn't like in that one, don't put it in the new one. That kind of advice, that kind of direction, that kind of encouragement is what this organization is all about. And it really reflects the whole idea of community that we're talking about.
I've never seen any events like this intense, this like family-ish feeling. So I truly recommend you join next time, or you just need to being a member is for free. So just be a member first, then see what's going to happen next time. Then I hope I will see you in Texas next time.
Cool. Thanks, Gail, for running that. So that's the symposium. We did during COVID, we did do something called Uncharted Territory, which was a kind of a smaller version of the symposium. It was totally online, and that has opened up some doors for us. And so we are not going to kind of abandon what we've learned by doing that, and the people that we're able to reach that might not be able to afford to come to wherever we produce the symposium. And so we're definitely hoping to do a whole lot more with online presence, maybe not quite as big as the Uncharted Territory we did, but that was really cool because we were able to play our prize-winning works, the Owen Prize and the Prize for Emerging Black Composers by the WDR band in Germany. We were able to have people like John Beasley and Maria Mendez, Cecile McLaurin-Savant, Theo Bleckman, John Hollenbeck, all join us on this. So we do expect to do more of that sort of thing. So again, I hope you'll check out ISJAC. I'm bringing this to your attention, or wanted to bring this to your attention, because we'd love for you to consider joining as a member, or possibly as a consortium member, which is more of our approach to organizations. Miggy mentioned in that video that, come on, enjoy it, it's free. Well, sorry, that has changed, but not by much. It's our annual dues are just $45 to join ISJAC. So it's a very inexpensive proposition to join us, and your support would be appreciated. But I'd really like you to consider also attending the Jazz Composers Symposium, see what it's about, experience that incredible sense of community. And we do want to open the door to potential partnerships or sponsorships, collaborations, new ways of communicating, and of course, we're always interested in funding opportunities. So I hope this was something that kind of was opening your eyes. Please reach out to me at any point in time through ISJAC, through my website. I would love to hear from you and answer any questions you might have about ISJAC. And one last reminder about Birdland this Sunday. I hope to see a lot of you there. Thanks so much. And I was just seeing if there are no questions I've neglected. So again, thanks so much for listening, and hope to meet you down the road.